Hi, this is week 10, and this week we're talking about neuroeconomics. This week we have four readings, one by Dr. Peterson. Richard Peterson is the founder of MarketPsych.com. MarketPsych is an investment portfolio that uses daily news. It looks for the data in the daily news that gives you the impression that people are increasing their fear or greed to certain stocks, and then they trade off of that information. Peterson was giving a speech at a conference organized by Michael Mauboussin, and that is the main reading. It's the longest one. It's very interesting, I think. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I hope you enjoy it. I put out three other readings. One by Powell from the Public Library of Science. Biology kind of talks about, how monkeys react to stuff and how motivations, incentives, and neuroeconomics is connected. Neuroeconomics is a really hot field right now. An article by Clements about your lizard brain talks about the reptilian brain, and one by Zweig that talks about how we name things and how that both attracts us and repulses us. Zweig's got a book out, so does Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson's book's here, Inside the Investor's Brain's quite good. Zweig's got a book too out about brains and investments. I have a copy of it. I wasn't able to find it for you, but Zweig writes in the Wall Street Journal if you can find it there. The slides this week, a couple of things. We are talking about the triune model of the brain. That's a three-part model. The lowest part, the reptilian part, the mammalian part, and then the cerebral cortex. The reality is that there really isn't three parts of the brain. It's one brain, and as humans, we use all three parts to make our decisions. All three parts are important for our survival. All three parts are relevant. So we talk about Damasio, a little bit about George Soros again. I try to make sure we touch on brain plasticity, which is about the fact that we can learn, not that you stop learning. You actually do continue learning your whole life, and that your brain power is not fixed. We are limited somewhat in our brain abilities. Our brain uses about 20 to 40 watts of power. I mean, there's some argument that's a little bit less. So the brain has to be very efficient how it goes about its problems. The reason why we're doing neuroeconomics now is what's interesting about this is that now you can start to see where biases start to crop up. An answer that's right 95% of the time that comes in a half a second versus an answer that's right 99% of the time that takes several minutes to calculate means you're going to end up spending a lot of time making small decisions. So the brain shortcuts that process, and that's where the biases come in, and that's where you start making some mistakes when you get into situations where you can no longer rely on those tools. One thing we often talk about in class is if you want to pick a local restaurant, how do you do that? Well, you pick a local restaurant by maybe you go to the web and you look at Yelp. Yelp's a great place to find out what other people think of restaurants, especially if there's more than 5 or 6 people that have posted. 5 or 6 can often be the owner and his 3 friends or 4 friends. But what's interesting is we pick restaurants because other people go there. If that's a way to pick investments, we're going to end up chasing the crowd, chasing returns. It's amazing that you can have a portfolio that can have a 10-year annualized return of 10%, but every investor in the portfolio can do worse than that. The early investors get out when they get their first decent return. The later investors join. Money joins when the price is high, and then as it averages down over to say a 10% annualized return, they make less money. They're not there when they made the big money. So you have to be really careful when it comes to things like this. Restaurants, follow the crowd. Investments, not always the best solution. The heuristic is, hey, let's just follow what everybody else is doing. They seem to have something going for them. So we talk a little bit about hot and cold decision making, and then I give you some advice from Alvaro Fernandez and some from Dr. John Medina about how to take care of your brain. This area is neuroeconomics is very important. The two great drivers, as you've seen with Bazerman, Kahneman Tversky talked about overconfidence, regret avoidance. This is where it actually plays out in your brain. Almost all the things that we talk about as far as biases are caused by some of the biological issues we have to deal with. By taking them from an emotional state or a fear state back to a rational state, all of a sudden you gain control over those things, which is so important if you want to be an effective decision maker, an effective investor, or give effective investment advice. So if you have any questions, please call me, 831-464-7061. I think this week we'll have a short quiz, perhaps a project, and that's all we have for reading. And next week we will be getting into the rational investments.